And we're live. Woo! And the more observant of you might have noticed that there's no Christelle this week, which is not for want of trying, because she's been having all sorts of weird computer and audio issues this week. So it's just me and the amazing Daryl Cagle, who is, well...
Delighted to be here, Tim.
Yeah, tell the whole world why you're amazing.
Well, I am a newspaper editorial cartoonist, which is a dying breed as the newspapers die. But I love what I do, and it's the best job in the world. And I have a little syndicate which distributes the work of about 80 of the top editorial cartoonists from around the world to many hundreds of newspapers in the United States, mostly, but some other papers around the world. And I brought some cartoons in to show you today. Anybody that wants to see all of the cartoonists should go to Cagle.com, and that's where we display all the new cartoons as they come up from all the cartoonists. And also, we're doing a podcast as well at Caglecast.com. Come take a look and sign up there for subscription, and you can see all of our cool free podcasts where we have editorial cartoonists showing their cartoons and talking to each other about their cartoons and arguing because they disagree, and it's all great fun.
Yeah. And you also famously, the funny thing is, in the UK, to call somebody a Muppet is a bit of a term of abuse, at least. So when you said you used to work for the Muppets, I was thinking like, oh, it's like they were that bad, your employers? But you actually did used to work for the Muppets. So
yeah, I worked for the Muppets for about 20 years. That's what I did when I got out of college. It was my long graduate school, and the Muppets were wonderful. Jim Henson's Muppets in Manhattan.
Yeah. Okay, well, shall we have a look at some of your cartoons, given that I've spent
look at my cartoons, Tim.
Quite a long time trying to upload these so they'll appear on there.
So this is a Republican elephant showing the black people where to vote. We have lots of battles about rules around voting, and the Republicans like these rules that make it much harder for minorities to vote, because minorities don't tend to vote for Republicans.
So a cartoon like this one, what is the process? Do you create these cartoons and then try and sell them to newspapers? Or is it a case that the newspaper or a publication will come to you and say, do me a cartoon about Republican voting laws or something like that? How does it work?
No, editorial cartoonists never do that. They just draw whatever they think at the moment. Although we think about what newspapers want, the newspapers all subscribe to a service, and they get all the cartoons. They can use it like an all-you-can-eat buffet for some ridiculously low monthly charge. Ridiculously low because we're competing with other syndicates that also do the same thing with a batch of cartoonists that they can subscribe to. And the marginal cost of adding a new newspaper is just the cost of click put in a new username and password for somebody. Doesn't really cost anything, so that drives the price down closer to zero, and just from the competition. So it is rough. Not only are the newspapers dying and eliminating their editorial pages, but we've got this self-destructive competition amongst ourselves. So nobody with any good business sense would become an editorial cartoonist. You do it for the love of being able to draw and say what you want. So the idea of somebody hiring an editorial cartoonist to draw their opinion or draw on their subject, that's not what motivates us. We better to be an illustrator to do that.
Okay, here's another one of your cartoons, which I think may be suggesting that the US is slightly vulnerable to oil and petrol price changes.
Yes, we seem to get jerked around by gas prices, and when gas prices go up, That's the cartoons the editors want to have.
Yeah,
Although cartoons about sexual domination, editors tend to not kind of like those. But I do. I'll draw what I want. I thought this one was fun. As you know, as you draw, as gas prices go up and down over the years, you have to, as an editorial cartoonist, draw so many darn cartoons about the same thing. You draw the gas pump as a monster, as threatening. The pump is a noose around your neck. You pay the price for the gas is arm and leg or firstborn child, or it's just, you trade the kid's college education for gas. All those things you've drawn over the years, and there's nothing left. And so I kind of made the gas pump into a character, and gas pump kind of became a bitchy character. And when you
yeah. Christelle likes this one, so
thank you, Christelle. Um, that's one thing that makes comic strips work.
yeah,
You can struggle to get the new jokes for it, but if you have characters, then just seeing the character act in character is rewarding to the reader. Um, Lucy pulls the football away. Charlie Brown loses the football game.
yeah,
Just reinforcing what you expect the character to do is rewarding like a gag. And so for me, the gas pump kind of became that way. I couldn't just draw more of those stupid gas gags, even though the editors would run those.
yeah.
So she turned into this character, and um, a character that probably the editors don't want to print, but it works for me.
Was this actually printed anywhere? I mean, like,
Oh, sure.
or yeah,
There's always people that'll print anything. We have a problem, which is that the people that read newspapers are a very aging demographic,
yeah,
and the editors are more timid now. And where back in the day, you would think of editorial cartoonists as being very bold. You remember Herb Block and Paul Conrad and all these guys, and
yeah,
Pat Oliphant, very very hard hitting. And you're seeing less of the hard hitting cartoons now because editors are editing the newspaper for grandma, and
yeah,
they have all of these cartoons to choose from every day from these cheap competing services, and they choose the cartoons that are the least disturbing to their grandma readership. And that's frustrating for the cartoonists, because editorial cartoonists tend to
yeah,
be macho types, and we like to make strong statements. And our means of making those strong statements in newspapers has kind of become difficult and not quite too accepting of the strong statements. So, but that said, cartoonists still draw what they want.
yeah,
I don't think the cartoonists, I'm not, most cartoonists are not changing their work to be more namby-pamby just because of the editors. So there's still lots, the work being done is just great. I think it's the best work ever in the field. But the
yeah,
work you see in the newspaper may not be the best work
yeah.
ever.
I mean, Christelle had a question, which is, do you feel somewhat censored? I'm guessing you're censored in as much as they might not buy it. So do you feel like censored
Well,
as
they
in
buy
like,
it. They subscribe. It's a monthly subscription, so they're always buying it. It's just that they have all of these choices. It's
yeah,
like you go to the buffet, and one of the choices is beets. Yeah, you don't want to eat beets, but
yeah,
beets is there. You can choose it. Um, so yeah, uh, I wouldn't call that censorship, because censorship implies that the government or some all-seeing
yeah,
Elon Musk is saying, "I don't want you to post that," and then there's nobody saying that. It's just the taste of our audience, and our audience is an intermediary editor who
Yeah.
wants something a little bit different than what the cartoonists want, which can be frustrating for us. Um, and also, the audience on the web is very different than the newspaper audience. The audience on the web likes the hard hitting stuff, so
Yeah.
cartoonists
I
will
can imagine.
get viral cartoons and get very uh, big number of likes for cartoons that the newspapers don't want to print, and um, they're deceived into thinking their work is popular.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've switched over. I think this is about Ukraine, so it's probably out of date now. But um,
Oh,
let's say that.
there's still plenty of people to grieve in Ukraine.
Yeah, well, yeah. But let's say I was running some sort of blog and I wanted to use your cartoons on it. I mean, do you sign up? Do you go to your site? Do you have different licenses for newspapers and websites,
Sure.
or how does
Go
it
to
work?
politicalcartoons.com. You can buy pay per use,
Yeah.
and or you can go to caglecartoons.com and just drop us a note and say you're a tiny little blog, and we'll give you the tiniest little price.
And oh, so this is. I mean, it's interesting to me. You have various sort of characters. I mean, Uncle Sam, I suppose, is somebody who's been around for a while, isn't he? And Putin's quite recognisable. But it's
Well,
interesting to me.
Uncle Sam is kind of interesting because
Yeah,
Americans perceive Uncle Sam very differently than they do around the world.
yeah,
If you look at cartoons from China or uh, Uncle Sam is the symbol of America, and he's kind of demonic and evil. He's a drug addict, addicted to oil, or he's in Arab countries you'll see him as a Dracula character because they don't do the devil. In countries that are more
yeah,
Christian, he can be the devil. But for American cartoonists, he's an everyman. He's all of us.
yeah.
And he's not the government. You can see lots of cartoons with Trump abusing Uncle Sam, which means he's abusing all of us.
Let's see if I
Um,
can find one. Oh, yeah. Next one is well, it's not
here's
good.
Trump with his secret documents.
Yes.
Uh, he wasn't very good about how he kept them.
Yeah, in the toilet in Mar-a-Lago or whatever they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of spread out everywhere.
I mean, Trump. Oh, this is. I particularly like this one. If I was going to pay for one, it might be this one because it's kind of like Elon Musk throwing up
uh,
into Twitter.
I think so. I think that he did not do well by Twitter, but
No, he's
uh, this is another one that probably isn't going to be printed much in newspapers because editors don't like the bodily fluids.
yeah,
Um, that's another thing about British papers. For some reason, you British guys think that vomit is more disgusting than Americans do. So
yeah. I think that's probably true. Actually, I
I'm
don't
not
know
quite
why.
sure why. I
Yeah,
suppose one bodily fluid versus another is perceived differently in different places.
I think it's because generally we drink more, so we're more used to seeing disgusting cases of vomit. So it triggers more than in America, where you're a bit like, "Oh, I'll have one drink and then I'll go." Sort of thing. Um, yeah, I definitely got a fan in Christelle. It's a shame audio wasn't working properly. Or
But it's nice to see you here, Christelle.
right, let's see. And obviously, the elephant is representing the Republicans, isn't? Is it Republicans?
That's another thing that makes it difficult for our cartoons to cross borders is that the
Yeah,
American cartoonists do this donkey elephant thing, and there's no reason for people in foreign countries to understand or appreciate the donkey elephants. But for us, we have all of this left versus right, Republican versus
yeah,
Democrat crap going on all the time, and the donkey versus elephant is uh, uh, just a great couple of characters for us to work with, and they're created in the 1800s by this cartoonist Thomas Nast, and they were adopted by the parties and adopted by the cartoonists, and everybody kind of makes them into their own characters. They evolve to be each cartoonist's donkey and elephant, and for us, it's a great shorthand. The best cartoons are the cartoons that don't have any words or labels or
Yeah,
explanations, and you get a lot of traction. Like I was talking before about the character acting in character. Um, we do that with the donkeys and the elephants, and you just the expression and the body language that you can get from a donkey and an elephant being uh, an expression that works for the entire group and portrays an attitude over a group or a class of people. That's a treasure, and so that's why we love these donkeys and elephants. And sometimes the newspaper editorial cartoonists are criticized for being dinosaurs or donkey elephant guys in the same
yeah,
breath, but that's by these young kids whose cartoons, the young cartoonists tend to be multi-panel, often or mostly autobiographical,
yeah,
conversational, personality-driven kind of discussions, and that doesn't work in a newspaper editorial page. This cartoon is surrounded by text.
yeah,
Um, this is an island on a page full of text, and it draws your attention because the rest of the page is boring. Um, so you have these cartoons by the style of the young cartoonists now is a whole bunch of words and a bunch of panels, talking heads, and that's just not where we're coming from, which makes us old-fashioned and makes us look, I guess, the old guys looking at the young guys and vice versa, and not really wanting to draw like they do.
and then it's like this is one with text, isn't it?
So this is based on Edward Hopper's The Nighthawks, and
Yeah,
it's fun to do cartoons that are based on famous images, and that's one of the benefits of being a editorial cartoonist. We have some extra largesse
yeah,
in being able to work with the copyrighted images to make a political point. And cartoons that take advantage of those images, the image comes with it. It comes with a lot of background and feeling that you're already familiar with, because it's such a familiar image, that it's a great boost as a symbol. And we work with a palette of symbols in order to try to reduce the explanation and labels and wording. And in this case, that's just
yeah.
great
I
fun.
mean,
The international cartoonists call those cliches.
yeah,
They work with cliches, and American cartoonists don't use that term, but it's kind of a fine term.
yeah,
They're just visual metaphors. Anyway, so you got the donkey and the elephant in the cafe, and the donkey says, "I refuse to pay for the hamburger I ordered and ate." And the elephant says, "Just put my hamburger on my tab."
yeah.
Which is the discussion that goes on in Congress every few months as they're running up against the debt ceiling for money that has already been spent.
The debt ceiling is one of those bizarre US things. Christelle's
Yeah,
come
you
up.
see, this is the debt ceiling cafe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I missed that. Christelle was
How would we
asking.
give the same message without the symbols we all know? Well, we would be stuck doing what the young cartoonists do, which is
Multi-man.
multi-panels with a whole bunch of words, explaining things that we wouldn't need to explain if we just used the cliches.
Yeah, and she had kind of a related one, like ever hidden messages in them. I guess you have, but probably everybody sees the hidden messages. I guess I don't know.
Um, there are some cartoonists who were famous for hiding their kids' names in the cartoons.
Yeah,
There was a cartoonist uh, in recent years who drew a comic strip, and he would hide dirty words in his cartoons. And then when the editors discovered that, a whole bunch of them canceled the strip, and it was a scandal. And why would you want to do that? You're just kind of expressing disrespect for your subscribers. So my feeling is cartoons are made to communicate, and if you're hiding something in a cartoon, that's not your purpose. You want to communicate with the cartoon. If it's hidden, it's not communicating. So I would say no, but cartoons are part of state mandated AP history testing in 8th and 11th grade in every state in the country. And the kids get cartoons for their homework. The number one email I get is, "Dear Mr. Cagle, please explain your cartoon to me. My paper is due tomorrow." And they get these assignments, explain the cartoon. That's what it is on the test. They're essay questions. They show a cartoon. They say, explain what the artist means by this. And they look at the cartoons as puzzles. And to them, everything in there is hidden because they don't follow the news. They don't know the metaphors. And so these things are just, they can be incomprehensible to the kids. That's regrettable, because what the cartoonists want is to hit people over the head with a clear message that's loud and simple. And if you don't know the old metaphors, and if you don't know what's going on in the news, we don't explain the news. You got to already know the news to know the significance of the comment. So that's very difficult for the kids, but those are good things to teach the kids. You want them to know about the news, and you want them to be able to decipher visual metaphors. They've got to live in this world, so it's a good thing to teach them, but it's very frustrating to them. So they look at them as puzzles and difficult, and where we would say, here's a cartoon with no words. We did that real elegantly. And the kids say, what?
Yeah.
And I hate that. So no, we don't want hidden messages. Hidden messages are a mistake.
Yes.
A cartoon that is not performing well because they can't figure out the puzzle. And it's getting so these metaphors and following the news are things that the elderly readers of newspapers do more than the young people who have their internet news feeds set to video games and kitties.
Well, I mean, this particular cartoon, I mean, clearly referencing like Guernica, isn't it? Like that
Yes.
painting. But I think a lot of people might not
Well, you have to understand this in context. I drew
Yeah.
this at a time when the Republicans had lost big in the election, and so they were in great distress. And more than anything, Guernica is a painting that describes the
Horrors
horror.
of walls, yeah.
And you see Guernica used in editorial cartoons. You'll also see The Scream by Edvard Munch. That's probably the most used painting in editorial cartoons, because you've got the horror, and you've got the benefit of everybody understanding. Well, perhaps not the young kids that are doing their homework, but people understand the painting to mean horror. So when there's ever a character that's reacting in horror, and you draw your Edvard Munch cartoon, then that's a gimme. It's an easy one. So you see that more than anything.
And then you have this kind of cartoon, which is pretty obvious.
Yes, President Trump marking his territory. Again, this is one unlikely to be reprinted because it involves bodily fluids. But somebody's going to print it, and I draw what I want.
Yeah, I mean,
better on the internet. It's good on our podcast on Caglecast.com, because we show the cartoons that the cartoonists want to talk about, and they like to talk about the stronger cartoons. So we have lots of bodily fluids on our podcast.
Watch his show, because it's got, if you like bodily fluids, then you like Caglecast. The Justice, Woman of Justice,
Well,
And
she's a nice metaphor, and Trump is doing a lot of screaming and yelling about
yeah,
his four criminal cases, and the
is
question is,
is his tie supposed to be representing like a devil's tail, or is that just an accidental?
well, over time, there grows to be a kind of a standard for how you draw a character,
Yeah,
um, and you think of uh, the old cartoonist drawing Richard Nixon and how he would develop the humped shoulders and the face and the big cheeks. And Jimmy Carter was interesting because he grew smaller. By the end of his presidency, he was about the height of your knee, um, and Trump has these wonderful universal attributes. Our current Caglecast is favorite cartoons about Trump, and so cartoonists have drawn so many Trump cartoons that we're going to do a few of those with different cartoonists showing their favorites. But Trump has these wonderful qualities. He's got a color palette. He's
yeah,
got the yellow hair. He always wears the blue suit and the red tie, and his tie is always too long. In real life, it's too long, but the
yeah.
cartoonists just make fun of that and make it all extra long. He says he wears the long tie because it's slimming. Um, what do you think of that? Is it
Yeah,
slimming?
well, I mean, no is the answer, but he's yeah.
All right.
I think Donald Trump might be one of these people who gets an idea on something, and then it's very hard to convince him that
He's also got the orange face, and
yes, yeah,
that's fun in the cartoons. And a lot of cartoonists make him have extra little hands, which
yeah,
is a kind of a sexual reference. And I guess it has. We talk about it on our podcast. Where do the little hands come from? And I didn't know there was so much background in the
yeah,
discussion of little hands. It's got a history. Um, but those are those are your Donald Trump rules. I
yeah.
used to live in New York, and I knew young Donald Trump because he was in the
Oh,
news in the '70s, and
mm,
uh, he did his ice rink thing in New York, and he was not the character that he is now. He was thin,
yeah,
and when I started drawing Trump, I had the old Trump in my mind, and it took me a while to make him fat because I had to adjust the image of Trump in my own mind, and now he has to be fat. If he's not fat, it's not right. If
yeah,
his suit isn't blue, it's not right. If his tie isn't red, you can do things with Trump that make him not Trump. Um,
yeah,
you have to follow the rules. Once a general caricature emerges among everybody, if you don't draw consistent with what the character should look like, he looks wrong. Even if you're drawing a character in a way that it's an excellent caricature of what the real person looks like, he's got to look like the caricature, or else
yeah,
you're out of step. Um, so uh, Trump Trump has evolved into a nice, easy, understandable, clear caricature that everybody has to do the same thing.
we have a few comments. Christelle saying he was a Democrat back then, wasn't him? Presuming about Trump in the
He was, and
80s.
he was pro-choice.
Yes, I know. And then we have love in this interview from Gina, which thank you, Gina. I'm sure.
Well, thank you, Gina.
And let's carry on with the cartoons. Oh, another one. I think I've slightly front loaded the Trump ones. So the backbone of the elephant. So I
You
think
know,
that
I noticed that we track the usage of the editorial cartoons, and they
yeah.
um, we noted that the editors during later part of Trump administration were choosing not to print Trump cartoons,
Oh,
and the cartoonists were drawing more Trump cartoons than ever, because you watch cable TV and he's on the news all the time. Um, so you know, it's what we think about, and most of
yeah,
the cartoonists don't like Trump. It's the nature of cartoonists to uh, draw what they don't like. It's a negative art form. And you notice the conservative cartoonists just didn't draw Trump at all.
Yeah.
And so the newspapers just weren't printing the Trump cartoons, and that was very disturbing to the cartoonists.
I mean, have you found that anybody's drawing Biden a lot, or is it? Or
Well, the
see,
conservative cartoonists draw
yeah,
Biden all the time, and the liberal cartoonists are really kind of unmotivated to draw Biden. For
yeah,
us, he's not that interesting. He's a disappointment more
yeah,
than he's a bad character that we want to
yeah,
ridicule. He's not liberal enough. He doesn't have he doesn't have the backbone that we'd like for him to see. For liberals, Hunter Biden is more of a sad story of drug
mm,
addict son than it is the Biden crime family. So it's not like liberal cartoonists like Biden. It's not like liberal cartoonists are supportive of Hunter Biden. It's just that
and they're
neither of
boring.
those are motivating
Yeah,
or interesting for us. Whereas for the conservative cartoonists, it's a passion. Uh, the Biden crime family. Biden is both uh, evil and dark Brandon and uh, absolutely corrupt, and at the same time he's um elderly and has dementia and is
yeah,
unable to walk without stumbling or speak without stuttering, and it's just two very different views of the world, resulting in different characters in our cartoons.
yeah. I like this one particularly because I thought it was kind of a little bit meta about what they're both fearing, and it's like he's fearing being attacked, and the other guy's being filmed fearing being filmed attacking the other guy. So it's all a bit
Yes,
contraction.
a cartoon can be kind of complicated even without words.
Yeah, but if it makes you think, I think it's a good cartoon, isn't it? So I'm sure.
Well, if it makes you think what I want you to think, then it's a
Yeah.
good cartoon.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, it's like, what is that? It's probably not what you want to see, is it? All right. And this is this
I
is
put this
Boris
I put this
Johnson.
in here just because I needed something British for you.
Yeah. So this is Bojo, Boris Johnson, I presume. And we're back to the old pissing theme again.
Yes,
The
and
body
of
function.
course, you Brits are much more tolerant of bodily fluids except for vomit.
Yeah.
So this is a good British cartoon.
Yeah. Houses are going. The Houses of Parliament is a metaphor, or a metaphor. It's a symbol, and you kind of know exactly what else have we got. And then we got this one with the yen, not the yen, the
Yuan,
Ruan attacking the
Yuan.
dollar, and
Yeah,
yeah,
this is Mao punching George Washington, and this is kind of an evergreen cartoon because we always have
yeah,
these currency wars and business battles. It works for both business and currency issues, and uh, you know, the American dollar floats with the markets, and Chinese yuan is. They decide what value they want it to have, so that their goods are
yeah,
also always more competitive than ours. So there's always this good battle going on.
yeah. Okay, so
Also, you notice with the American cartoons, cartoons don't cross borders easily, and
yeah,
American editors tend to be interested in American stuff. And the cartoonists like to draw cartoons about the rest of the world, but they don't get printed.
yeah.
They're very much interested and focused on America and American newspapers, and that's also disappointing to the artists. And
So would you
I
say,
regret that.
from a
I'm sorry.
Caglecast point of view, that the majority of people who sign up and use your cartoons tend to be US publications, more on the liberal side? Then this is kind of the vibe I get. Or do
Oh
you sell?
no. Um, the majority of newspapers in America, there's about 1,100 dailies
Yeah.
now. They are rural or suburban and
Oh,
smaller
okay.
newspapers, so they tend to be conservative.
Yeah.
The larger urban papers tend to be liberal,
Yeah.
and so you see more of the larger papers just because they're louder and bigger.
Yeah.
But the majority of editors that pay these small prices and subscribe to our services, they have conservative readership. Maybe the editors themselves are liberal, but they're selecting cartoons for the readership.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating for the cartoonists too, because the majority of the cartoonists are liberal. And on our Caglecast podcast, uh, we have the cartoonists talking to each other about what they want to talk about, and so we have more strong, hard-hitting cartoons and bodily fluids, and we have what more international stuff. And I also
Yeah.
noticed with the podcast, there's less interest in international issues than there is um, in in the domestic self stare at your navel kind of cartoons. So what can I say? On the Caglecast, we just do what we want. I
I
would like
know.
for it
What?
to be used more in schools,
Yeah.
um, because it's often frustrating for us what the teachers. We want the teachers to understand the cartoons and get to know the cartoonists as well. I'll
Yeah.
tell you a story. So
Oh,
we
okay.
sell the cartoons that appear in textbooks for the teachers who teach the tests, and they appear in the tests themselves. We license them for the testing services. And we sold a cartoon to a big textbook publisher. They devote a page in the book to here's the cartoon. What does the cartoonist mean by this? Here's a sample essay. And the cartoon was the planet Earth, and it's a giant hamburger in space.
Yeah.
Um, and the textbook says this cartoon means all the world loves hamburgers.
Mm.
I mean, this is a big, serious textbook writing this, and
Yeah.
of course, hamburgers is international symbol for America that Americans don't perceive to be a symbol of America. You have to be
Yeah.
outside of America to see a hamburger as representing America. So it's a cartoon denouncing American hegemony over the world, something that a foreigner would think.
Yeah.
And not something an American cartoonist would draw, both because our audience wouldn't understand it and because we don't think of hamburgers that way, and we're not really drawing cartoons about American hegemony like they are in South America. So it's frustrating for us, too, that the teachers
Misinterpret what
who
you.
are probably
Yeah.
too young to be reading the newspaper are not understanding the cartoons that they have to print. So we're kind of hoping that our Caglecast video podcast will get more used in schools, and that you
Yeah,
can get a little more sense of the cartoon if you know the people behind it and the way we think and the way that we talk, rather than just looking at these cartoons on the page, which editors think of as fungible, and they look for the the cartoons that are not what the cartoonists like. It's a very different perspective if you hear from the cartoonists.
Yeah, well, I watched an episode on YouTube, and it's a really accessible show. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily think, but you are talking about, like, I mean, if you're interested in cartoons or politics or the world or just people talking about politics, then it's a good show to watch.
Well,
It's like,
thank you, Tim.
yes, and Christelle has made this comment. She made it a while ago, actually, but it comes into this, like, do you think there are certain people who are innately more caricaturable? Well, you know what I mean. Can be made more into cartoons than other people. And
Sure, there are
what aspects
remarkably
are?
few characters around the world
Yeah,
that we can draw without a label and explanation.
yeah.
Um, and Boris Johnson would, I'd say, be one of that handful. Um,
Trump,
but
obviously.
Americans tend not to get to know foreigners, and they don't get, we can't really draw most members of Congress either.
Yeah.
Very few are somebody you can just draw without a label, and labels are for sissies.
Yeah.
We don't like labels, and you think of those editorial cartoon parodies in The Onion, and how it's got labels on everything.
Yeah.
And, we're seen that way. Part of using a label is this guy couldn't draw a good caricature. But then you're kind of stuck when you draw a great caricature of somebody that people aren't going to recognize because they don't know who the person is.
Yeah.
But yeah, Boris Johnson's great, and he has the hair, and but we didn't get that much news about him.
Yeah.
We have Putin on quite a bit, and Putin is probably the most recognizable foreign character now. But draw cartoons about Ukraine, and they don't get printed that much because it's outside of the borders. So it's kind of frustrating. We have the problem with characters in the United States. They're just there aren't that many that people can just look at and know who they are.
Yeah. So you're not going to get Mitch McConnell cartoons or anything like that?
Oh, we do. We get Mitch McConnell cartoons. He's drawn as a turtle, and he's got these big round glasses with the beady little eyes in them, and
falling asleep in the middle of the speech or whatever.
Yeah, but name 4 more members of Congress that we can draw like that without explaining who they are. Maybe name 2 more. It's difficult.
Yeah, well, as Nancy Pelosi, but she's still doing it Congress, or she?
Yeah, she's running for re-election.
Yeah, and but they're not. They are. I mean, they are pretty anon. I mean, I couldn't remember who the Republican House leader is. I can't even remember.
Yeah, Kevin McCarthy, and we haven't seen a good caricature of him emerge like Mitch McConnell. He's harder for people to draw. They're still putting labels on him because you can't tell who they drew.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure he's going to be around that long, to be honest, so it's probably not worth bothering. Anyway, so we've talked a little bit about your Caglecast show. Where can people find that? I know it's on YouTube. Is it anywhere else? It's on your website, is it?
Well, it's at caglecast.com.
Yeah.
Or they can go to cagle.com, and it's on up at the top of the front page. The podcast is pretty easy to find. Or you can just type Caglecast into Google, and you'll get a place to find it. It's on every platform as an audio podcast, so we explain the cartoons for people that don't see them. But, it's in video on YouTube. We'd like to get more people watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's on the other video platforms, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But best place to watch it is on Cagle.com or Caglecast.com. You can see all the past episodes and get more fun stuff there.
And if anybody wants to sign up to your service, presumably is it Cagle.com or is that Cagle?
Cagle.com is the site for readers to just go look at cartoons, but it's got links to everything. If you click on any cartoon on Cagle.com, it takes you to our store site where you can license the cartoon. And if you're interested in subscribing for a publication or a blog or something that wants to be able to just print as many cartoons whenever you like for a disturbingly low fee, you can go to caglecartoons.com and you can see what the editors see. We've got like a real-time news ticker of cartoons as the cartoonists draw them and upload them to the site, and it's always changing and it's always extra current. And we've got a searchable keyworded database of 300,000 cartoons from the last 23 years that we've been doing this, so you can look up things on any topic. It's really very cool.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for being a guest on the show today. And
Tim, you and I have in common that we've each visited 59 states.
59? 49, you mean?
49? Oh, boy, I got to bone up on this stuff.
The 10 states of depression, loneliness, anxiety.
49 states we've both been to.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I've had this conversation with people. Everybody seems to have this number 52 in their mind for a number of states. And I think it's the whole 52 weeks in a year. And I know that it's 50 states, and sometimes I say, oh, there's 52 states, and it's just weird. But anyway, that's a side. So, but you've got to go to North Dakota, haven't you? That's your...
I do. North Dakota I've never been to, and I'm not really motivated to go there. I don't know what I want to see in North Dakota. But you've got Hawaii. You definitely should go to Hawaii.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Hawaii. But North Dakota has got this North Dakota Visitor Center you can visit, which has got that got the wood thing from the film Fargo. But the best attraction in Fargo is in Minnesota, so that's the only thing. Just across the border is this Viking ship, which I can never remember the name of. It's a reconstruction of a Viking ship. It's not actually a Viking ship, but it was this Viking ship that somebody built in the 1980s and sailed all the way to Norway.
To North Dakota?
Yeah, well,
that's in Minnesota.
It's actually it's over the border in Moorhead in Minnesota, but it's just across the bridge from Fargo.
Might as well be North Dakota.
Yeah. So you've got that to look forward to when you get... Well, I'm assuming you go to Fargo. I mean, there are other places in North Dakota, but Fargo, with my research, was the best place to go. So, you could just pick a random place. I'm not even sure what the capital is of North Dakota. Bismarck, is it, or somewhere?
49 states is a very frustrating number. It feels like you have something that you just have to do.
Yeah. Well, you should do a cartoon about visiting North Dakota. See, 0 sales for that. Anyway, somebody's left a comment. Oh, yes. Christelle's just saying thank you. High school sign. So,
well, thank you, Christelle. I'm sorry you couldn't be here.
Yes, it's like those award shows. We're sorry you couldn't be here, but you've won this award. So, anyway, let me find the outro music. So, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Tim, and thanks for what you do. I think you're fun.
And go and watch his show. So anyway, goodbye, everybody. Bye.
This is what God requires.